Hey everyone, I'm Derek Mon from Carrot & Co. As you guys know, we're an authorized retailer for Grand Seiko among 25 other different brands, which I won't name here, in Flushing, Queens, New York. I have a special guest today. It's Mr. Joe Kirk from Grand Seiko. He's the brand curator and national trainer for the brand, but I like to think of him as the Grand Seiko encyclopedia. Last year, Joe held an incredible lecture at the Horological Society of New York detailing Grand Seiko's spring drive, and if there's any questions you guys have, he's the guy who will know or will be able to find out. So drop your questions in the chat later. And like I mentioned, we're going to have a live chat session later. So, hey, Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Derek. Nice to be here. I wish it was at the store, but
Yeah, me too.
what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But nice to see everyone that I recognize and know. So when it really today is just kind of a short look at what we've just announced in literally the last 10 days. So just a few pieces we're gonna kind of overview. We're gonna talk about the very special new piece that we just announced. That's not really a piece that's for sale, but we can't we can't wait for it to become a commercial product. So I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about. But we really want to open it up to you guys and actually have this be an event where you can talk and interact with someone who would be at the store for this event anyways. So I guess we'll get started. Just real quick, because we're doing this in more of an open format, just keep yourselves on mute until the end. If you do have questions, put them through the chat and we'll recap at the end during the Q&A segment. And then once we start the Q&A, stay on mute unless you've got something, unless you're ready to say something. So that way we don't hear the background noise. It just gets, it gets to be a lot sometimes if everyone's off of mute and there's tons of things going on, like screaming children, which is usually my fault. But I'm in a conference center right now in my apartment complex, so I'm away from the screaming child, dogs, all that good stuff. We want to hear each other. So. And then, of course, we always ask everyone be respectful. So, and, we got this going on. I know I don't have to say anything, but, I just like to throw it in there, maybe get a chuckle out of someone. But thank you, everyone, for joining us and for cooperating with these few rules. And, of course, thanks to Derek, Carrot & Co. and the entire Mon family, great partners of ours. And we're excited to do events with them and to do real events eventually. But in the meantime, we'll carry through with this format. So we'll get started. So you guys probably saw the new SBGR321. So this is a new mechanical automatic that we introduced, which is going to continue the theme of the 60th anniversary of Grand Seiko. Obviously, the 2020 is an entire year that we have to celebrate the 60th anniversary. And so our color scheme for this year, which you guys probably recall in some of our earlier limited editions, nicknamed like the Superman and the new SLGA001, which I saw something pop up on the chat on that. The delay of SLGA001. So we're sorry to keep you waiting. Hopefully it won't be too much longer, but obviously with the situation and all going on in the world, we're of course going to anticipate some delays, but this will carry on the blue and red color scheme. So the reasoning behind the blue and red, just so everyone knows, is blue is the color of Grand Seiko. You see it on our boxes, on our packaging, on all of our marketing material. Blue is our color, and that roots back to indigo dyeing processes. So the blue for Grand Seiko is meant to kind of represent that labor-intensive, renowned color that is a part of Japan's history as well as Grand Seiko's. So the red is a symbol of birth, right? And this year being the 60th anniversary, a complete cycle of the zodiac, a full complete cycle, meaning you start anew. It's like a new birth for Grand Seiko. So red is tied in with Grand Seiko blue to celebrate the rebirth of the brand. And you've seen some really cool and really innovative things this year. and it's exciting, and we never stop surprising. And you know, maybe there will be a few more surprises left this year. We'll see. But this was the latest surprise, which I think everyone was surprised by. But the inspiration behind this, of course, along with the color scheme, is the beautiful morning sky that you can see behind Mount Iwate as the sun rises. So this is kind of dual fold in the Grand Seiko color scheme, meaning that, yes, this is obviously symbolizing the rebirth of the brand, but it's also the dawn of a new horizon for us. So this is this, you know, the symbolism behind this new concept. So we have the blue radial finish dial, sunray pattern dial, with a red tipped second hand, which we have not seen, at least in this country, in one of our mechanical automatics before. So I think everyone's really excited about this aspect. This is our 9S65 caliber. So it's an 8-beat, not a high beat, and it has a 3-day power reserve, but we're using the titanium oscillating weight that the titanium is actually crystallized. That's why you get that kind of unique texture or pattern to it. And through anodic oxidation, we achieve this blue color. So this is a permanent part of the metal, right? It's not a painting process or anything like that. This is a part of the titanium now. So it's everlasting. So this titanium rotor, we've only really used in 2 models back in 2012 in the 9S6 series. So meaning not high beats, right? And there were 2 GMTs for the anniversary of the first GMT in Grand Seiko, which was 2002. So it was the 10th anniversary. So now we see it in the 9S65, which technically would be the first time. And we're really excited about this because, one, the 9S65 is a little easier in terms of production capability compared to a high beat. A high beat, obviously more expensive, but also more difficult to create. And then on top of that, the price point is a little better. So we're making 2,500 total pieces, and expect that these, you know, will take us a while to create because 2,500 is kind of a lot for Grand Seiko Limited Edition. So we'll be staggering the deliveries probably through a wider range of time than normal. So they'll be delivering probably pretty late, maybe even in the 2021 pretty substantially, but still, you know, this is launched to celebrate the 60th anniversary. And the price point is outstanding at 5,200. So that's another great aspect of this model. So this will be a 40 millimeter case, 3-day power reserve automatic with this beautiful sunray pattern dial and red tip second hand, the awesome titanium oscillating weight. And like I said, for 5,200 is a great introduction to our lineup. So we're really excited about this one. Next, we're playing in a whole nother league in comparison. Right? We just announced this this brand new take on the Tokyo Lion. Now, you may recall that for 2019, we introduced the Tokyo Lion design, which is inspired by, you know, the lion's mane dial, which is this really fine fibrous pattern that is supposed to emulate the lion's mane or the hair on the lion. And then the case design has this really, you know, kind of oblong, very highly flat and highly faceted shape, and is reminiscent on the lugs of the lion's claw. So there's a lot of elements that take cues from the lion, right? The teeth, the claws represented in the hands and the markers. So all these subtle design cues, you know, we're not trying to recreate a lion exactly, but just take these little cues to have this unique take on a Grand Seiko sports watch. And so a lot of people don't realize this. This case design is very difficult to manufacture. There's a lot of very flat surfaces and a lot of really crisp, sharp edges. And so when people see this case, I mean, it's like a perfect flat mirror, and there's a lot of these really broad surfaces. So it's a great example of Grand Seiko's craftsmanship and capabilities in case manufacturing and case polishing, right? The wonderful Zaratsu polishing process. So this is a part of our DNA, which is now expressed even more complex than normal, right? So another factor to that is we made some models in titanium for end of 2019 is when we started to deliver most of that stuff. the 2019 versions in titanium is more difficult to work with than steel in terms of polishing and manufacturing. On top of that, we also have rose gold, which is even more so difficult to craft and polish. And we have to cold forge, and we have to be extra careful in doing Zaratsu polishing on these surfaces, because rose gold is generally a soft material. So this is a very difficult case to manufacture. And we have to compress the gold. The cold forging is compressing and annealing over and over again, right, to create this very complex shape, initial shape, before it goes through the Zaratsu polishing. So there's a lot that goes into this, just in the case alone. So the inspiration is obviously derived from samurai armor. So we're calling this the lion's armor. And so this actually stems back to an indigo dyeing process, right? That's called katsuyo. So this dyeing process was basically like a symbol of honor in armor. If you had this deep indigo blue in your armor, this was a very prestigious sign. So with that said, this combination, this color combination, especially incorporating the rose gold, not only beautiful, I mean, aesthetically, this is spectacular in my opinion, but you know, as a representation of the history and kind of, you know, legacies that live on in Japan, this is a beautiful representation of that as well. So we have the blue lion's mane dial. We have this beautiful sapphire bezel with a very subtle blue undertone, the blue crocodile strap, and the rose gold case and clasp. So I mentioned this indigo blue strap, and you may notice that between the scales, there's actually gold. And this is not a die. This is actually like a gold foil embedded in between the scales of the strap. So this is a very unique strap for Grand Seiko, the first of its kind in the brand. So something new, something that expresses the watch quite well and fits with the design motif very well, especially in relation to the image of the armor you can see there. But this is a beautiful new strap that I hope we see more of down the road as well. So one of the great aspects of this that separates it, because we did a rose gold model in red originally, right? The first limited series had a limited edition of 100 pieces in rose gold with red. And this with the blue, we're now capable of doing a blue sapphire crystal bezel. So this is actually a metallization process that allows for this subtle metallic blue underlying the sapphire crystal. And of course, all the numerals are luminous. So the 24-hour scale for the GMT is very easy to see day or night. So this will also be limited to 100 pieces worldwide, and is of course a part of our 60th anniversary lineup. This only representing the indigo blue, but with no red accents, but maybe you could look at it as the rose gold as our expression of red. This is utilizing our 9R96 spring drive chronograph GMT. So we don't make a lot of this chronograph movement, and with good reason. It has a specially adjusted, basically a specially adjusted oscillator that allows for plus or minus 10 seconds per month, equivalent to less than half a second per day accuracy. And because these are scarce, we can only utilize them in limited editions or very limited production models. So this model will be launched, probably start hitting the US by November. Same for the SBGR321, both on about the same timeline, since we announced them at about the same time anyways, 6 days apart. But this will be 44,300. I think this is what everyone's been talking about for the last week, so. Man, this video gives me chills every time I see it. That's our new T0, our constant force tourbillon concept. While it is a concept, and I know there's been a bit of confusion on what this is, it is a concept. The movement does exist. So this will be featured in our Grand Seiko Studio Shizukuishi in Morioka, and it's an existing movement. However, it's not going into production. So that's something to keep in mind. We don't have a watch to go along with this movement, basically, is what I'm telling you. So at this time, it is strictly a concept. We hope to see something down the road to evolve from this. But you're already actually, believe it or not, you're starting to see some of the contributing factors of the development of this movement were introduced into our new 9S-A5 caliber, which we announced earlier this year, back in March. So the 9S-A5 and the T0 Constant Force were developed alongside each other. Two totally different engineers and designers behind the development of both of these models, but they work together to share their knowledge and concepts in order to create each of their own new calibers. Now, the biggest difference is 9S-A5 is a commercial product, right? We need to make these and be able to sell this movement. So there's restrictions in play, manufacturing, lead time, all these different factors. What it's going to cost are all big factors. And what makes this T0 Constant Force so unique for Grand Seiko is there was total creative freedom. There were no restrictions of how long is it going to take to make this movement? How much is it going to cost? Biggest factor, right? For everyone. How much is it going to cost? Not a concern. The designer was given total creative freedom to do whatever they needed to make the most accurate watch possible. And that was the goal behind the T0 Constant Force. So this beautiful skeletonized movement is achieving unheard of accuracy for a purely mechanical movement. And two of the biggest factors in a mechanical movement in terms of affecting accuracy, one of which, the tourbillon, was created essentially for pocket watches, right? Counter affects the gravity. So when a watch is sitting in a vertical position all the time, the balance wheel, the hairspring are hanging downwards. And by constantly turning those mechanisms, it's alleviating the balance and the hairspring and the entire escapement on all sides. It constantly rotating, constantly moving it, and creating a better performance based on the fact that it's always moving, so it's never just affecting one side. So the tourbillon has potential in a wristwatch to be a practical complication. However, most nowadays are more novelty and showcasing a skill set, right? Manufacturing skill, because it's really hard to make the parts. It's a lot of parts in a little tiny area, and to assemble is especially difficult. So tourbillons are traditionally art. And in 2016, when Crador introduced the Fugaku tourbillon, that's how it was portrayed, as art. The T0 Constant Force wanted to put the tourbillon back in its original place and showcase its capability in terms of accuracy. Now, the other big factor in terms of accuracy is energy, right? When you wind up your watch, or if it's an automatic, when it's at a full power reserve, the torque is strong, the torque is high, and the watch can perform great. But as the power reserve gets weaker and weaker, so does the delivery of energy to the balance wheel, which has an impact on the performance of the watch, right? If the balance doesn't have full amount of energy, it's not going to perform to its fullest potential. So a constant force mechanism can be used to deliver energy to the balance wheel consistently and evenly over an extended period of time. So many constant force mechanisms in the industry are not very close to the balance. Like the closer that you can get it to the balance, the better. But it becomes increasingly more and more difficult to get it closer and closer to the balance. So there's not many companies that have a constant force mechanism in general let alone one that's very close to the balance wheel. And with this new creation, we have the world's only constant force tourbillon that is fully integrated within the mechanism itself and also on the same axis. So this is what separates this from any other constant force mechanism or any other tourbillon mechanism in the watch industry today. So it's a beautiful thing, right? But the results are what make it so impressive. With this, within our static condition testing, we have achieved basically incredibly consistent results, unbelievably consistent results, no matter what the position, across vertical and horizontal positions, high or low energy, it performs the same. And we're rating it within plus or minus half a second per day, right? 0.5 seconds per day, plus or minus. That's a tough thing to do in a mechanical watch. That is our highest level of spring drive, as you saw in the 9R96, right? That's the highest level of spring drive, which we cannot make a lot of. Delivered in a purely mechanical watch with no hybrid regulating mechanism, right? Just a traditional, maybe not so traditional, but it's an escapement. We'll call it that. So this has been under development for the last 7 years, and very secretly. One of the most renowned journalists in Japan had no idea that this was going on, and he knows both of the designers of the 9SA5 and the T0, and they didn't even give him a clue that this was coming. So this is showcasing something very new for Grand Seiko. It's, first of all, it's showcasing our capability as a manufacturer. Of course, not only are we capable of making something like this, but capable of making something like this from the ground up, totally designed and developed by us. So that's a really neat aspect of this movement. So it's far more than just the development in the tourbillon and the constant force mechanism itself. There's so much to be said about this, and I won't linger on it too much today. But I want everyone to understand how much work and effort went into this. One of the things you'll notice right off the bat is that there's 2 barrels, right? The 2 barrels give it a 72-hour power reserve, possibly, but 50 hours is delivering constant torque. So realistically, we can consider it a 50-hour power reserve, considering that it has a tourbillon, which generally adds weight and depletes the power reserve faster, as well as a constant force mechanism, which will generally deplete the power reserve faster. The other thing is it's a high frequency. Now, it's not a high beat 36,000, but it's 28,800 vibrations per hour. And you guys might not know this, but this is the highest frequency of any watch with a constant force mechanism in the industry today. That's pretty neat. So also, the higher the frequency, the faster the energy is expelled. So all of these things, and they still get a long power reserve, longer than the industry average, which is sitting in that, less than 48-hour range, is great. So like I said, there's a lot to say. One of the last things I'll mention is that we have developed also some new tricks in terms of the manufacturing capabilities that allow for hardening treatments on the wheels, which also reduce friction and essentially act as like almost as if it's self-lubricating. On top of that, the constant force mechanism, we're utilizing ceramic actually for the stop wheel, which, if you can see my cursor right now, is right at the 6 o'clock position. So this is a ceramic stop wheel. So every time the constant force delivers energy, once per second, right, it jumps, and you can see that in the deadbeat second hand that it has on the tourbillon carriage. This wheel is made of a very durable ceramic. So we've had a lot of R&D and development and testing, especially testing, to ensure that this ceramic material is going to stand the test of time with this movement, which of course we're 100% confident in that. So a lot of cool things. One of the other aspects is that this does have a hacking mechanism. So you pull out the crown and it stops the entire carriage, right? Usually you just stop the balance wheel, but this stops the entire system, right? The entire wheel system that you see here at 6 o'clock is ceased. Hacking mechanisms on tourbillons are very rare, just so you know. This actually utilizes a system from a stopwatch we made for the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, which we also used in one of our vintage models, the 45GS, to not only to stop the mechanism, but also when you close the crown to start the watch back up again, it gives a little boost to the balance wheel. It kind of taps it in the right way to make it drive. So that way there's no loss. So the finishing aspect of it too, it's tremendous, right? Over 300 components, individually hand finished, takes over 3 months to do the finishing for this particular model, this particular movement, I should say, excuse me, this concept. Maybe I should use the right terminology. So Mr. Kawachiya is the brilliant designer behind this new constant force tourbillon mechanism, the T0, which T0, by the way, means torque, right? Torque 0 is kind of like watch jargon, watch slang in Japan. That means that it is basically 0 hours expelled, right? It's not there's been no depletion of energy from the barrel, and so that's where T0 comes from. A lot of people, myself, when I first heard the name, thought it was standing for tourbillon, but it actually is a representation of torque. So, as you can see from his pedigree here, he's actually a Wo-Step graduated watchmaker from Switzerland. He's from Japan, obviously, but attended watchmaking school in Switzerland, which is an unusual criteria, I'd say, for most of our teams. But you know, the engineering degree, of course, is a little more common, but the Wo-Step degree is a little bit more unique, I would say. So he hasn't been with the company that long, only 10 years, and he launched a constant force tourbillon. Believe that? I do.
You hear that, guys? While some brands are launching 41mm divers and funky colors, Grand Seiko launched the T0 Constant Force Tourbillon. And I saw on the back there that it says 16th note feel. And I think in the video you just played a little bit earlier, you can hear the ticking like, and then you can hear something like it almost sounds like a snare, like on a drum, like, and it almost sounds like a dope hip hop beat that's about to drop from this. And I think it's so fitting because, I mean, it's a first for the whole industry. It's first for the world, T0 Constant Force. And it's just incredible what Grand Seiko is bringing to the table, especially in a year like 2020 and what's been going on.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is, and thank you for bringing that up because I totally forgot, like, one of the greatest parts about this is the 16th note feel, as you said, which is engraved on the case back. So listen closely. I'll play it again because we all need to hear it one more time. But yes, this is the only watch in the world that's capable of making this sound. If you look right around the 25-minute marker of the tourbillon carriage, you can see the second note. So every second you hear the beat, right? That's your metronome. And between every beat, you have what sounds like 4 notes, right? It's actually 8 beats, but there's 4 notes. So very, very unique sound, specifically because of the frequency of this tourbillon with constant force. So if it wasn't 28,800 beats per hour, you obviously would not hear that, right? And if it didn't have a constant force mechanism with a dead beat seconds, you wouldn't hear that either. All right, so jumping back to the final slide, in this video, you may notice the balance wheel, right? This is a 3-arm balance, which we don't have in any Grand Seiko or even Saco over the years, not many or none. 3-arm balance. The shape of it is very obscure though, right? I've never seen that in a balance wheel before. So what this is a tomoe, right? This is like a family crest you would see in like Shinto shrines. And so the tomoe is representative of a whirlwind, or I'm sorry, a whirlpool, excuse me, right? And tourbillon in French means whirlwind. Tomoe, this in particular, representing a whirlpool. So again, kind of separating, separating us from the European side, let's say. The tomoe is expressing the whirlpool, which is made in Shizukuishi, which the name itself means water dripping on stone, right? So it's a very unique expression and a kind of a hidden message that no one really knew about in this watch. So on that note, we'll open up the Q&A. You guys can turn your cameras, your mics on if you got something to say. If you don't, great. If you just want to hang out in the background and see what other people are asking, great. We only have a couple questions in the chat, which is surprising. Usually there's so much more.
I'll start off an icebreaker question for you, Joe.
Sure.
So, this is Joe's pure own personal take. If you could only have one Grand Seiko watch in your collection, which piece would it be, and why is it the Grand Seiko Snowflake?
I mean, it's pretty much that is pretty much truth right there. Yeah, I mean, that's for me personally, the Snowflake's kind of where I started, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I bought my Snowflake. It's 9 years ago, probably creeping up on 9 years, and I'll tell you, I couldn't take it off for almost 7 years straight. And the thing that pushed me to wear another watch was really getting a high beat. So the high beat GMT in 2014. So in 2014, we came out with the Mount Iwate high beat SBGJ, which is now the 203. I own actually both the 003, which is the same dial, the Saco Grand Seiko dial, same watch, but the 203 has the Grand Seiko only. And that's what I'm wearing today. Nope, hidden under the collar. See, and people think these are too thick. Hiding under my cup. The the high beat GMT would be probably, if not the choice, because I probably wear it the most now. It would be between that and the Snowflake. It's a really tough call. I think there's a lot to be said about mechanical watchmaking that goes on in Grand Seiko. And I mean, you're seeing some really outstanding things this year, but don't ever doubt the 9S85 high beat that we have, and the 9S65 for that matter. I mean, you're not getting that much watch anywhere else in these price points, in my opinion.
I would have to say that's probably true for myself too, to start off with the Snowflake. Although it's not the watch I wear the most now. I wear the 9S66, the automatic GMT. But I remember the first time I met you, Joe, you're actually double wristing and you're wearing the Snowflake and you're wearing the high beat GMT. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here today who are also double wristing Grand Seiko watches. So it's not an unusual thing to do because like all of us, we're fans of the brand and we really appreciate the new things that Grand Seiko is bringing to the table and the value that is delivered in, the price point that you're getting. But yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's and most of you guys have seen me too. I mean, I think I've met vast majority of the people here today, and usually when you see me, I'm wearing two.
So let's move on to the questions. Do you have any questions from the chat?
Yeah, there's a few questions here. So the one was about the delay on SLGA001, and unfortunately, I mean the situation in the world is is going to be a part of the reason behind that. It's just the way it is. We have to make sure, even at the factory, social distancing and stuff like that. Which it changes everyone's workplace. I mean, I think we can all relate to that. So, you know, we do apologize for any delays in any of the models announced earlier this year, but, you know, I don't think anyone, I mean, really would have guessed this would have been happening last year. So, you know, sorry, but it will get here. Don't worry. Let's see, is the blue on SLGA001 going to be unique to this watch, or will it be used somewhere else? So that's a good question that I've never had before, but I have an answer to. And yes, it's unique to that watch. And no, there's no other watch that's using a dial like it. So it's actually based on a decision for legibility and to make it more matte than other dials that we're doing for the 60th anniversary. Because obviously it's a professional diver, we want it to have as high a legibility as possible. So for this particular dial, we have changed the approach slightly compared to the Superman, the Sbgr321, both of the quartz introductions, all different styles. So let's see, what else do we got? The red ring on the case back of Sbgr321. So this is a new process that we're doing sometimes on Sapphire crystal, and I hope you guys don't hate it too much. But you know, this is a part of the Sapphire. This is actually achieved by adhering to the Sapphire. So like not like a printing process, you know, but it's a permanent attachment. Electrochemical process of attaching it. So that's a part of it. And you guys probably saw the new AJHH snowflake with the red accents. I'm assuming most of you guys have, or a good handful that was only sold in Japan. You know, that was a similar style. That was the same manufacturing technique, but you know, just in case people are familiar with that. Can we talk about the caliber 9S-A5, the escapement especially? Yes, and you know, it's 9S-A5 is, you know, it's unlike anything, right, in the industry. And I mean, there's a lot of comparisons that can be made, but it's such an awesome take on a new escapement. And so, you know, unfortunately, right, well, what I could do actually, bear with me. I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment and I'll pull up a video for you guys. So the 9S-A5 is a dual impulse, right? So it delivers 2 pulses of energy to the balance wheel as compared to a traditional lever escapement, which just delivers 1 indirectly to the balance. This has direct delivery of energy and indirect, like a lever escapement. So it's a great benefit in terms of performance. But, you know, in reality, to do this in a highly energy efficient way is a huge challenge. And that's why it took us almost 10 years to introduce this movement. So bear with me just a moment. I'm going to share this now. So I don't know if you guys have seen this video yet. It's great. It's CG rendering, but very true to life of the 9S-A5. So the twin barrel design for this was actually from the T0. So it wasn't developed for this watch in particular. It was developed for the Constant Force Tourbillon. And you'll notice that the wheels are very highly finished. Everything about this is a big step up from the 9S-85, and the 9S-85 is amazing. So the dual impulse part, right? You can see here the tooth sliding across the jewel. That's what you get in a normal lever escapement. The direct impulse is delivering energy directly to the balance. So there's this little jewel that comes past and gets kind of slapped by this tooth as it moves by. You'll see here, it gives a little burst of energy, and that keeps basically the balance wheel swinging to a high degree, or the amplitude is going to remain high. And this is a large balance wheel, which is not common in high beat movements. But I mean, it's just really brilliantly designed. The most amazing thing about this, and I'm gonna scan through this. I love doing this on my computer. It's a lot of fun. All right, so a lot of the designs in the escapement itself, like the overcoil design, is patented. Like, this is an entirely new take on an overcoil. And not many people know this, but there's tricks we've been doing to hairsprings since the 60s in Grand Seiko that have made them quite unique in the industry. And for this particular, first for Grand Seiko, an overcoil, we wanted to do it right, and we wanted it to be our own. So not your conventional overcoil by any means. Because of the patented nature of this shape, we're not going to explain what the difference is comparatively speaking to a Breguet overcoil as an example, but maybe in time we will. So at least right now we're not doing that. So another aspect is that the balance is free sprung, so there's no longer a fine adjustment regulator. So that in most mechanical watches, means that if you have a regulator, pretty much any watchmaker can work on it. It's super easy, and you have this really broad range of adjustment you can do. But with free sprung, you can only do micro adjustments, typically through screws or nuts on the balance wheel itself. So by turning them tighter, it'll make it move a little bit faster. Out will make it move a little bit slower. And that's how you would adjust a free sprung that didn't have a regulator. So in this particular instance, that's not really part of Grand Seiko philosophy. We want it to be easy to service, right? So because you don't have this broad range that comes with a regulator, you can only do micro adjustments. We added a new feature that allows us to do an adjustment to isochronism, right? The beat error is also adjustable in this, which is generally not for a free sprung. So that's a new feature as well. And then the dual impulse is the big part of this new design. So if I go back just a little bit here, you can see the indirect impulse. So as this tooth is sliding across the jewel surface, it delivers energy indirectly to the balance wheel, right? Through the lever and to the balance wheel. That gives it a little bit of energy, keep it running well, right? And then as we jump to the dual impulse, as the roller comes around, you can see the tooth makes contact to that jewel there, and that delivers direct energy to the balance wheel. So having both of these is fantastic for keeping high amplitude. However, it's hard to get both deliveries of energy, and to do it in a very small and lightweight package is unheard of. But we were able to do it in a single wheel that is skeletonized, so it's ultra lightweight, and a very unusual lever design, which is also skeletonized, so it's very lightweight. So this way, it's improving energy efficiency. Not only is it improving energy efficiency compared to if we were to make a dual impulse escapement, this is improving energy efficiency compared to any lever escapement that's in the industry, right? Which in theory shouldn't be possible. So comparing this to our already highly energy efficient 9S85 high beat, it's 20% more efficient than that. And that's really, really unbelievable from, from a watchmaking perspective.
I think in the watch industry, a lot of people hear the term in-house now, but when it comes to Grand Seiko, I think in-house means like an entirely different thing, because Grand Seiko is a vertically integrated company, so they can produce their hairsprings, they can produce all these little components, and they're still pushing the boundaries of what they can do. So some brands will just say, we're in-house, we produced, we assembled it in-house, but Grand Seiko is like, no, we made every component in-house. We polished every component in-house. We did fine-tuned everything in-house. It's a totally different meaning. And I'm sure many of you guys see that firsthand when you guys see the product as well.
Well, thank you. Again, you're very, very kind and very, very generous, but thank you. And I know you're honest about it, which is the best part. All right, let's see what's next. I keep seeing this this 9R-A2. I don't know what that is, but we do have a 9R-A5, and basically 9R A5 is slightly over 10K, 11,100 in the SLGA001 professional diver. So hope that answers that question. I'm sure it doesn't.
Okay, I have a question that someone submitted early on. So
Sure.
the community has been asking Grand Seiko to produce a 40mm spring drive diver watch for years. So what were some challenges in getting the new SBGE253, 255, and 257 spring drive GMT markets line into the market? Those are the 40.5mm spring drive GMTs with the ceramic bezels, and they fit great on the wrist.
Yeah, one thing is, I mean, it's not technically a dive watch. With those particular models, they're not technically a diver, so they don't have the same case construction completely as a dive watch would. So got to keep that in mind. The 4 o'clock crown also helps. There's no crown protector, so that's not factored into measurement, which is a big deal as well. So 40.5, and our current spring drive divers, even though they're 44, realistically, because of the crown protector, it makes it a little bit beefier in terms of measurement. So the reality is, I mean, it wears kind of like a 41mm, right? But the crown protector pushes it out in terms of size. So reality is, I mean, they're fairly close in the actual, kind of case shape, but the crown protector pushes the dimensions out. So that's one of the bigger factors. In terms of if we'll, be able to overcome any challenges to make a 40mm diver, that's going to be a tough one. Because for Grand Seiko design, I mean, crown would have to probably be at 4 o'clock. There's, I don't foresee any possibility of us making a watch with a crown protector that's going to be, that's going to be like 40 or less, or 41 or less, because, that just adds to the size. So, but yeah, I mean, it's, I would say that design really is one of the biggest factors, and that the fact that the GMT is not really a dive watch. It just has 200-meter water resistance and it has a closed case back. That's the biggest factor is that aspect. That answer it?
Yeah, I think we can be happy with it. It's a 200-meter water, resistant watch and 40mm in spring drive. I think it will satisfy a lot of cravings for some time.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly showcasing that right now that they're out in the wild, right?
Exactly. I have another question here.
Yeah.
This one's from Jason from the Grand Seiko Owners Club. He said, "Will the USA have
here somewhere?"
He said, "Will the USA have another set of limited editions like the first SBGA387, aka the Kirizuri, aside from USA exclusive non-limited edition seasons and Saco?"
Yeah, that's a tough one, because we're talking about, the future, and, obviously if we haven't announced anything, we can't really, first of all, predict, or second of all, talk about. But, I think that people wanted more continuous product. Like, people were like, oh, there's another limited edition, it's limited, it's sold out now, I can't get it. So there's a lot of problems with limited editions in that sense, because people get upset. And I don't blame them, right? I'm mad I didn't get a Kirizuri, and I'm very jealous of you, Jason, for that. So, and many other watches that you own. So, keep that in mind. We hate making people so jealous, but I don't think it's out of the question. I just think that, obviously the last couple of US exclusive models that we've brought to market are continuing. And I think people have been very happy about that. So, yeah, we'll see, but I hope so.
Jason, I'll send you Joe's address so you can mail him your SBGA 387 and you can loan it to him for
there we go.
No limited amount of time.
Derek, I'm sorry to interrupt in the middle of that. Can I chime on this question?
Please do.
Okay, thank you. No, just to say also that the past two exclusive US series we released in 2019 and this year 2020, the 62GS 24 Seasons of Japan and the two Saco references are not limited, of course, as we know, but they are limited production. We cannot get enough. We have a limited capacity for those models, and we run out of especially some of those SKUs, those models. So not limited, but limited by production. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I'm sure Derek is experiencing, and thank you, Brace, for that. It's a very good point that I should know. Because we face this every day, right? I mean, I'm sure you're facing that challenge too. Like Shunbun having decent supply, it's not Taisetsu, same thing. You know, I mean, especially right now, we're having a very difficult time delivering those two models specifically. We will, I'm sure, at some point in time, face that challenge also with the high beat and with the Saco. The Saco is thankfully new, but you know, at some point in time, I'm sure we're going to run into challenges delivering those as well. So
the short answer is it didn't have to be limited edition, and it's still like a limited edition because of such incredible dials and the pieces that they are. So they pretty much are already limited editions.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind too is that the factory is taking time out of, you know, global production to make something exclusive for us, which is not really something that is you know, the 62GS case design does not exist in any production watch right now except for the four for the US market. And so to make those cases is challenging because it's not a part of the continuous production line for the global market. And then the dials, you know, on top of that, you know, it makes for complications. So, you know, got to factor in all these different elements, but yeah, it's a hard thing, but we're trying our best to make sure that, you know, you don't have to get on multi-year wait list for them. Let's see. So, Derek, you got another question, or you want me to shoot off the chat?
Shoot off the chat, and I have another question after that one.
Okay, so let's see. Where do you see GS going in terms of higher complications now that we have seen a tourbillon? What about the value to price ratio? So, you know, I always say this. If it's a practical complication, I can anticipate it. As a total guess, without any insight into the future of complications into Grand Seiko, the part of Grand Seiko's brand and DNA philosophy is like, it's made to be the best practical watch in the world. And while we have some complications, you know, I mean, our chronograph GMT is like as many components as a grand complication. So, you know, we can count that as a complication. We can count, you know, this new tourbillon with constant force delivering 0.5 second per day accuracy. In this instance, because of the performance that it's achieved, that's a practical complication to achieve ultra high accuracy. In terms of other complications, you know, I mean, realistically, I would say that if we want to guess, we could guess a million things. But at the end of the day, all you have to remember is that it has to be practical. And I think that will suffice.
Everyone will have tourbillons by 2025. Just kidding. I have another question someone submitted. It says, how does Grand Seiko produce the beautiful sapphire crystal half-loomed bezel on the SBGJ238? So for some people, that's the new high beat GMT. There was two one came in blue with a half white bezel, and then there's another one that's green as well. So the question is, how does Grand Seiko produce that half-loomed bezel on those pieces?
And I mean, I kind of touched on that subject with the Tokyo Lion, just the exception being that that metallized blue, right, is just not done on the lower half, and there's luminous paint applied. So there's luminous, you know, the luminous material, Lumibright, which is our own in-house. So it's basically the same thing, just not on the other half. But, you know, I wish I had a really pretty answer for that, but unfortunately I just don't.
Short and simple. We like that.
But believe it or not, actually, one piece of insight, like something interesting about that, is that to do the colors in the bezel like that is actually a very difficult process. From a manufacturing standpoint, is very challenging, and that's why it took us so long to ever introduce color into our bezels like that. So new developments, basically. Of course, in-house too.
In-house.
That's right. All right. So, what is the reason that some limited edition models can't be found in the website, at least the USA website? If it's not available in the US, that's one reason. US website is only going to list what is available. If it's sold out, is another reason. But otherwise, everything should be on our website that is available in this country. Ricardo, I think we met in Basel one year. Us consumers love it, but I always wanted to know if there was 10 bar water resistance, something GS strives for on most of its watches. So yeah, at least 100 meter water resistance on vast majority of our watches. So that's part of Grand Seiko's philosophy, right? For that practical everyday watch, we want to have at least 100 meter water resistance. However, since we became an independent brand in 2017, you know, we started to expand our collection. And especially in 2019, we started to introduce more and more dress watches. And with the dress watches, they're not, you know, I mean, they're on leather anyway, so you're not going to take them in the water. But those are 30 meter water resistance. So, you know, we do have that for our dress watches. But for the most part, most Grand Seikos are 100 meter water resistance or higher.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Let's see. So example, the SBGN001 or SBGM235, when you go to all models, you don't see these ones anymore. Yeah, so SBGN001 and SBGM235 are 2018 models that are long sold out. So that's why they're no longer on the website. So once they have been retired, you know, then they're no longer visible on the website. Generally, after about a year of time, our website automatically removes models. So, you know, it just depends on the situation, but they kind of have expiration dates on the website. It's something that Japan set up. That's just the way it is. So that was getting back why we don't have the certain limited editions. Ricky's asking about the Shanghai China boutique only limited editions. Any chance of getting those in the US? Much like you can't get the US exclusives in Shanghai, you can't get the Shanghai, the China versions here. So that, unfortunately, that's the case.
We just have like a few more minutes. So if anyone still has questions, submit them and we'll go over a few more because we're just about hitting that 1 hour mark that we have here with Joe and everyone for coming, and thank you guys.
So let's see. All right, we got a few more questions. I see a couple people asking about the bracelet and micro adjustments, and you know that I understand, and I just want to kind of go over, you know, there's a reason why most Grand Seikos don't have, you know, a bulky micro adjust clasp, right? On our sports watches, it's, you know, with a heavier head, it makes more sense, you know, because it balances the watch out, but we're trying to keep our watches very well balanced. And a part of the design is to make the bracelet more or less seem completely fluid. So when you look at the clasp in comparison to the rest of the bracelet, it's almost exactly the same thickness, right? Which I don't know of many brands that have this, right? That have this capability. So that's a factor into the design to make it more comfortable and more balanced, is to have this very thin flush clasp. Now, there's a trick though when you're sizing it. And I've never had a problem personally where if I size a watch that, you know, depending on if it's hot or cold or anything, it's too tight or too loose, you have to find the right size. And so the half links that are in here, You have to keep in mind two of them are slightly longer than a full link. And so if you take out 2 links out of your watch and the watch is too tight, and then you take out a half link or I'm sorry, too loose, and then you take out a half link and it's too tight, right? Take 2 links out, it's too loose. Take an additional half link out and it's too tight, right? If you take out 1 full link and 2 half links, it should be the perfect fit. And you shouldn't have to worry about adjusting it for hot or cold, right? Because you want some breathing room in your bracelet, first of all. That's, you always want to err on the slightly loose side. Otherwise, you cut off circulation, whatever. I understand the convenience of a micro adjust, and I don't disagree with you. And we do make them in select watches. And, sometimes you can adapt those bracelets to other cases and stuff like that if you really want to. But the design was done this way to, like I said, try and make it more flush. And, hopefully, and if you have a problem in terms of getting the right fit, we'll always do our best to help. So please reach out and we'll try and make sure that you get the best fit possible. But, yeah, that's something to keep in mind about our design.
That's like an insider tip on how to get the bracelets to fit perfectly. So usually, like Joe said, if the full link doesn't do it, you can always take out like the half link, or you can add back the full link and mess around with the half link, and it always will pretty much even out a lot better than just doing the full links by itself. That's why they're there, pretty much.
The other thing too is, in most cases, micro adjust, vast majority of brands, you need a tool to micro adjust. Not very convenient when you're on the go. So, the goal is to not have to need a micro adjust and have a perfect fit every time. But, if we, I think if we were ever going to do it in Grand Seiko, we'd want to do it right, where you don't need a tool. But, there's other companies that have similar, designs, let's say, and there's patents in the world, so that might be a reason also. So very good question that I've never had before, but I know the answer to, is the difference between the 9S64, which is just a time only mechanical manual wind Grand Seiko movement, versus the 9S63, just the absence of the power reserve. So surprisingly, no. Right? It has sub-seconds too instead of central seconds, but completely redesigned, right? Totally different in terms of the architecture and layout of the gear train. Like everything is totally different about it, which is like, it almost makes no sense, but this is the case. And in order to off-center the seconds and in order to include the power reserve, which adds a lot of components, it actually changed the entire structure of the movement. So it was entirely newly designed. So, it's still, it's still a 9S series movement. So there's a base architecture there, but the design is very, very different.
Well, so let's do one more question, and then I want to ask if whoever wants to join in, if you want to show your video, and we're going to do a group wrist shot together. Hopefully everyone is wearing Grand Seiko, so that would fit with the theme that we're going with. But let's do one more question, and then so people can prepare to get themselves camera ready while we hear this last one.
All right, so last one, and is a very important question. Which watches need to go to Japan for service? So, it's a lot of people are under the impression that all Grand Seikos have to go back to Japan to be serviced, and that's totally not the case. I do get that question a lot or comment a lot. Almost everything can be serviced here in the United States, right? So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Not only are we trying to become a more global brand in the sense of sales and expanding our designs and stuff like that, but also in terms of after-sale service. It's been a big focus for us over these last several years, is expanding our servicing capabilities outside of Japan. And it takes a long time to get there. So, but keep in mind, they're being trained right. As they go through this very rigorous training process to become just a certified technician for service, let alone to get on the watchmaking line. So, we want to do it right. And so now we have the servicing capability in the US. The only things that cannot be serviced in the US are the 9R series spring drive chronograph GMTs. So 9R 86 or 9R 96 do have to go back to Japan. Also, anything from our micro artist studio. So like the Creators, the Grand Seiko 8 Days, the new, Sparkling Snow, the Kiriyuki, is the SBGZ003. Those pieces would have to go back to Japan. Actually, anything made in the micro artist studio is also serviced by the micro artist studio. So keep that in mind. But hopefully that clears that up for everyone.
It's a great last question. All right, so if anyone wants to join in, we're gonna do a wrist shot with everyone, so you can show your faces, your beautiful faces and beautiful wrists, beautiful Grand Seiko wrist. Wow, everyone's so ready. This is awesome. All right, so I'll give a little bit of second to get everyone ready. Let's see who else is gonna chime in. All right, so I got this snipping tool, screenshot tool ready. So I'll give a few more seconds for anyone else. I know a few of you guys will still jump in. There you go. Hey, baby.
Oh, with baby in hand.
Yeah. All right, is this everyone? I'll give you like another 20 seconds.
Oh man, I see a ceramic bezeled chrono in there too.
There's
all
a good
sorts of
spread of
good
watches here. I don't think we have two of the same going on here.
Not that I can tell.
Yeah, not that I can tell. Alrighty, that was the 20-second mark. So, okay, still got, there we go. We got Breeze. Alrighty, I'm gonna take a screenshot now. Ready? Oh, Carlos. Carlos just disappeared.
The baby turned it off.
Baby turned it off, yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1. Nice. Let me save that. How do I save that? Did I save that? Sorry, can I do that again?
Well behaved baby on top of it. I wish my kid was that good.
Yeah. Sorry, can I do that one more time? I think I did not capture that for some reason. It did not save. How do I do this? All right, got it. 2020, guys. Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. I got it. I'm gonna save it now. Thank you guys so much for joining this live chat with Joe Kirk. Thank you, Joe Kirk. Thank you, Grand Seiko USA, for helping us organize this. We would love to do a in-store event when it's safe and possible to, but in the meantime, we're happily doing live events like this where you guys can interact with the brand and with Joe and Brees and Rusty are here as well. You can interact with them and ask them any questions. So we're always happy to do more formatted stuff like this. So thank you guys so much again for tuning in, and I'll definitely see you guys soon. And thank you, Joe, again.
Yeah, thank you. No, really appreciate it. As always, Derek. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Yep, thanks everyone. Great seeing you all.
Good seeing everyone.
Hope to see you again soon.